class if, there we go. All right, confidentiality, anonymity. I'll talk about these in a second. Anonymity and or security. Okay, so those three things. So if you're going to ask personal questions, and so you could think of it in two ways. You could think of it of asking your students. Let's say you teach high school, and you want to ask about sexual behavior or drug use or anything that students might be like, well, I'm not sure I want to answer that question. Is if you can offer them the ability that this survey is confidential. Now that might not even be enough. It's like confidentially is nobody else but you and me are going to see this survey. So you just tell me, your secrets. So that's probably not enough. Now the next one, anonymity, might seal the deal in a positive way with respect that if you can say that you don't have to tell me who you are, and even if you answer the questions, no one's going to be able to say who said what. So that might be good on that. Those type of questions. And then the other one is security, is really around if it was a paper-based survey, where is that going to be stored and, the security of it. And in a digital world is, who has access to it? Can you turn the survey off? Is there ways that you can limit access? Those kinds of things. So, okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, I think we can squeeze it in here. Number 3 is, can the people answer truthfully? Okay, and I'm going to introduce a word that you may or may not have heard before. So the sentence is going to read like this: can the people answer the question truthfully? But I want to put in brackets right behind people. The people that are answering your survey or your quiz are called respondents. So let's introduce that word now. So when we say, can the people answer the question truthfully? And I'll give you, and again, from the video, a really benign type of question that you at least think in your mind, if I asked any one of you, do you have a library card, that actually people would lie about not having one, right? So people that didn't have one, because of something called social desirability, would actually lie about something like that and say, oh yeah, I've got one, yeah, for sure, right? When I don't know, to some people it wouldn't be a big deal, but obviously other people it is. So in the video, he also talks about just rewording that question of not everybody has a library card, but there's lots of other ways to read books and get information and things like that. So that's called, and I want you to remember that one. So I'm just going to make a new one here for number 4. Sorry, can people answer truthfully? Sorry, I don't know what. We'll just keep going. Well, hopefully it'll be good. If not, I've got the recording here on my end, right? It's being recorded. So just try and bear with me. Sorry, there's not much I can do unless you want me to log out and log back in, but that's be a very long process. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the darn internet. Okay, now, all right. So we've got people willing to answer the question. Can they answer it truthfully? And then number 4. All right, number 4, oopsie, is the question has a known I was just thinking of another social desirability example. The question has a known or easily recallable answer. Right? I just think of another social desirability type of question. And I mean, again, for some people, it's a big deal. Some people wouldn't be. But you could ask any education student, are you a member of the EUS? And then some people may fib to you one way or the, if they're not, and they want, they're thinking that's socially desirable to belong to that, but they haven't got around to doing it yet. They could potentially, lie, right? All right. So the question has a known or easily recallable answer. Hey, Sarah, can I pick on you for a second? Sarah D, are you there? Maybe not. How about Catherine? Can I pick on you? It's a really easy question. I won't even embarrass you. Is there anybody out there? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? All right, Sarah, will you be my helper? All right. Well, okay. Okay. All right. And you don't have to answer this question, but if you know, let us know. So here's the question on is it an easily recallable answer? Last year, how much did you spend on snacks and food? And I can pose that question to all of us. Any of you, last year, how much did you spend on snacks and food? And none of us would have really an answer. If you're the primary grocery buyer in the house, you have to go, okay, well, approximately every week or every 2 weeks or every month, I spend this much, but there's always extra trips and stuff like that. No one could really probably tell you right to the dime how much they spend. So there you go. Does the question have a known or easily recallable answer? Even something simple like that can get you in trouble. Okay. And then, just going back also, I keep getting stuck back on social desirability. If you were to sort of think about that in the teacher parent dynamic, you have to be very careful again asking parents about questions about their kids, because they may give you the answer that you want to hear only because they know that if they answer no, that good parents are supposed to do whatever it is you ask them, right? So that's kind of an important one to think about as well. Okay, number 5 is to avoid, and this one really applies to us also on a quiz or a test, is that we want to avoid double-barreled questions. Avoid double-barreled 2 R's, Brad. Barreled questions. Okay, so avoid double barrel questions. So here's an example, and he kind of gave us this example in the video, but I will just sort of put it more around to our circumstance. Do you believe, so here's a double barrel question. Do you believe that the government should spend more money on education and less money on photo radar? Now, if you answered yes, then what are you answering yes to? Should the government spend more money on education and less money on photo radar? Or maybe it's yes to both. But you see what I mean? When you've got 2 questions and you're not getting an answer to both of them, right? There's 2 questions, clearly 2 questions there. So the moral of the story is on a double-barreled question, or if you want to ask 2 questions, then just ask 2 questions. Even if it's you have to, going, I promise it wouldn't be any more than 10 questions or something like that. Even if you have to ask 1 extra question, don't sweat it. Okay. All right. Number 6. And this is, again, a really important one to think about when we're talking about with parents or guardians regarding their children, is to avoid biased terms or wording. Okay. Biased terms or wording. Okay, so in the video, he talks about asking a question this way, is to say to somebody, well, are you on welfare? And so people might, even if they are, or even if they're not, people might get offended by using that word, right? A more kind of socially acceptable word, again, would be, have you ever collected social assistance or income assistance? Those kinds of things. So, and again, also asking questions around people's genders and and preferences like that, we need to be really careful on how we ask those questions, because we don't want to offend everybody. And we all know how easy it is to offend people these days, right? Okay. And then number 7 is a really important one for, again, really important for both tests and quizzes when we're creating them, is that you pre-test your questions. Okay, so a couple things that I would recommend is that yes, you go through it and take that, do that Google form, right? Whether it be a quiz or a survey or whatever it is, actually do it all the way through, click submit, and then check out the answers and stuff that you have the power sort of as the creator to look at sort of some after the fact stats about your quiz. So you want to pre-test your own questions. It's also not a bad idea to ask like a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, somebody not related to that Google form, to take it and see what they think of. Put your student hat on for a minute. And if you were a student taking this survey, this quiz, does it make sense to you? So that's kind of a really nice one on that. And then the last thing that the guy in the video mentions, but also is completely true, again, for both tests and quizzes, is that, and I'll just write this down in our notes here. There is, and I'm just going to put it in capital letters and underline it. There is no such thing as a perfect, and I'm just going to substitute the word survey out there and just put perfect question. Okay. All right. So if we keep that in mind, that no matter how many times you write tests and how many years we teach the same subject or topic and we have tests about that, there's always ways, and I do this all the time, there's always ways I'm tweaking a question. I've missed something as simple as a capital letter versus a small letter. You keep you keep perfecting that test or that quiz. Okay, so that is it for notes. Is there anybody that needs me to go back or say, talk about something again? No, everybody's good? Okay. All right. So we're going to put our notebooks away for a second. Okay. I am just going to close my, well, maybe I won't, just in case we have to write again. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to go to Google Drive. Okay, we're going to go to Google Drive, and we are going to go to New, and we're going to go to Google Forms. Okay, on all of these menus, you can always click this little side one. You get, blank doc, blank slide, blank sheet. You get this stuff here, but we just go Google Form here. And if you remember back to when we were talking about file systems and markup, and sharing and all that jazz, remember that when I click this here, because I'm in my demo file that we made when we were doing that, and the setting was set to share, anybody or whatever, every time I create a document in here, it just reminds me that it's going to be shared. So, okay, so we're on a Google form, and so by default, all Google Forms come in as purple, unless one of you know how a way to change it. They come in as purple. And the nice thing is that we can change it. Okay. All right. So like all the Google things that we're going to do, we're going to, the very first thing we're going to is attend to the title. So we're going to do a practice survey and a practice quiz together, but you will need to do your own version of those two things. So, because I want you to do a survey and I want you to do a quiz for a grade and an age and a topic that is one that you actually want to teach, so that you could use the survey in your ePortfolio, and it fits really nicely under TQS number 1. Okay, so all right, so the very first thing we do is give it a name. So I'm just going to call mine practice survey. if this was me doing it, like if I were a student and I was doing it, it might be Sky Science survey, or things that float survey, that kind of idea. Okay, so once you change the name here, it will update it right here in the form as well. So you can see how it's updated there. But now if you do go back later on and you change the name, which you probably would do if you were going to use this from year to year, you'd at least change that, it's, Sky Science survey, fall, winter, whatever year it is, that kind of idea, right? So anyways, once you name it, you get a folder, and then that way you can navigate. And if you wanted to put it somewhere special, you could do that. There is the star system. Remember, so you click that, it will show up in your starred items over here, right? And then let's just keep, I'm not going to star it, but let's keep on going across, and then we'll work our way down. So the next thing up here on our little white bar is the add-ons. And if you click that little jigsaw piece, you'll see that I've got 2 add-ons. You all should have form limiter. If not, I'll show you how to get it after, okay? And what form limiter does is here, I'll give you an example. So remember, you have the ability to do that do-over quiz for the course outline. Well, I put form limiter on that, and it will close on the due date and the time that it is, whatever it is in Google Classroom. I can't remember. So, and then after that, it will close the form, and no one else will be able to add any more answers. So that's an example of form limiter. Okay, so you can either do it by date or time, or you can do it by number of like respondents or people. And where you might want to do that, let's say you were offering a workshop for parents, and you were, I don't know, where you were doing it somewhere where you could only have 15 people in the room. Well, then you would want to limit your form by, let's say, the first 15 people that sign up, they're the ones that get to go to the event or whatever it is. So, and that's what I do for my workshops as well. Okay, and then Quillgo is, you'll get introduced to this when we do our very first quiz on the content that we're learning in notes and stuff like that. It's kind of like Lockdown Browser, but for Google Forms. Okay, so this one I have to pay. Form limiter is free. Quillgo is, I think it's $6 a month. Okay, anyways, you don't have to worry about that one. The next one over, if you don't like purple, is the one that you're going to be really interested in. Okay, so there's 2 ways to change the color of your Google form. You can just choose these colors that are over there, over here, and then they show up, obviously over there. But you can also choose whatever other colors you want. Okay, so that there's that way to change the color from purple. Okay, and then the other way it would be to come up here and to actually choose an image, because then what happens is then Google somehow magically tries to match your form to the colors that are in whatever type of header that you would add. So if you click choose image, you'll see that there are quite a few that Google gives you in all these different categories. So just for 1 sec, you can just stay there for 1 second. So you can see that I've got this sort of red and pink theme going on right now. So when I choose an image, and I'll choose one that's darker, like this one right here, if I was going to click on that and go insert, what will happen is it changed the color of it, and it also changed the theme colors that I'm kind of allowed to use. So it kind of takes the colors out of whatever image you choose. Now, of course, the other thing that you can do here is there are lots of different themes. So you need to choose and change or pick a theme and use it, because it's just part of the checklist that you need to show me how to do that skill. Okay. And then once you do that, here, I'm just going to choose these crayons. And then once you do that, then you're good to go here. There is really not much else we can do. We can still monkey around with the colors a little bit, and the other thing that we can do is change the font. And then again, I would just be cognizant of who is my end audience. Is it my grade 2 kids? Is it my grade 1 kids and moms and parents? Is it, right? Because if young kids, you don't want a font like this, right? They're not going to be able to, kids won't be able to read that. So I would just say that whichever way you go, that just go with something that's not too fancy. Okay. All right. So that is the palette, or the customization of the theme. I'm just going to close that off now. The next button over is the eyeball button. So that's what I'll refer to it, but it gives you a preview. So if you're going, oh, wow, what would my survey look like now? And you click the eyeball, it shows you what it would look like. So I usually do that after every question or two, I like just to double check and see where things are going. Or if I put in a different kind of question type that let's say other than multiple choice, then I usually click the eyeball and go check it out. And then once you're done, after you hit the eyeball and you check out your survey or your quiz or your Google form, and you're like, okay, yep, that looks good. I always recommend that to close this tab, because here's what happens. Every time now then that you go to click the eyeball, it just opens up more tabs of the same thing. So I usually just close it off after I've done the preview. The next button over is just, we all know what these are: redo, undo, right? Those buttons, undo, redo. Okay. The send button, I don't usually use the send button, but if you click it, kind of here's what you can do: is you can send via email. So you could send this directly to a parent. Okay. You can grab the link for it, and it even has a little Google or Google's providing a little URL shortener. So if you look at the big long address here, if you click that, you get a much simpler address, and then you can copy that, and then you put that link wherever it is that you can put an internet link. And then the last one is embed code. And that would be like, you could put a Google form that you wanted parents to fill out on your class website or on the school website. So you'd use this one with the funky little brackets. Okay. So anyhow, that's what the send button really, that's all it does. And so, and then I guess the other thing you can do here is add collaborators, but I'll talk about that in this little menu over here. So the little drop down menu then is make a copy. Super handy, right? Each of my classes of the 1302 classes all have to do an end of the term participation and professionalism rubric, right? So what do? Do I make 3 separate ones and type 3 separate ones out for each class? No, I make one. I get it exactly the way I like it. And then what I do is I go make a copy, and then you can do that for how many of our classes you have, right? So that's a really nice handy feature. Move to trash. I can't remember the last time I used this one, if I've ever used it. A pre-filled link is the same kind of idea. When we go to send, right, we can get a pre-filled link here. So that's what that, but I don't know why it's in 2 places, but it is. I guess, I don't know, I have no idea. You can print it out. I can think of a couple times where I've printed out a quiz, and that was to find a mistake, I think. But other than that, that's why using a Google form, you want to go digital, right? Here's that add collaborators button again. So this is the exact equivalent as the share button. So if you go to any Google Doc or a slideshow or a Google Sheet, up in the top right corner is the share button. Well, this is the same thing. In Google Sites and in Google Forms, they do this, and I don't know why. But if you click it, look at it, it's the exact same window that you get when you hit the share button in one of those other types of documents that I just mentioned. Okay. So script editor, I've never used this. I think you need to know JavaScript to play around with that. But here's an add-on. So remember I said when we started this, I said if you didn't have form limiter there, then what you could do is you can go down here and go to add-ons, and then it takes you to like the add-on store or whatever it is, and you can scope them out. There's other ones that I use from time to time, but generally speaking, you just got to go there. You got to go, wow, here's this one, right? Quilgo. That's again, remember, that's one that's like lockdown browsers. So you just got to try to play with them. Check their ratings out, how many people have downloaded them. And then if you don't like them, you can also just as easily get rid of them out after as well. Okay. All right. So that's all the fancy buttons other than knowing whether you're in your Edu account, right? All right. So then the next thing down is questions. I'm going to call it a tab. Okay. The responses tab and the settings tab. So the questions is just that. Basically, what you see here is a multiple choice question by default. Every single time you click the little add a question button, you always get a multiple choice question. But the nice thing is, though, we have some several choices of what types of questions we can ask, or of different things that we can add to a Google form. Okay, so that's whenever we want to create a question or read our questions and look them over, we come to questions. Under responses, and please, if you're not there, you can click on this. There's a couple things you can do. One is you can just manually turn the quiz off or the form off, okay? Or you can turn it back on. We will click this little green button here, but not right now, because what will happen is it will create a spreadsheet that then gathers the data from your Google form, and then you have it in a spreadsheet, and then it's really nice to be able to organize it in a spreadsheet if you need to. So we'll do this at the very end so that we have everything just exactly the way we want it, and then we can create the spreadsheet. We'll look at these 3 buttons when we actually create the spreadsheet. And then the last one here is settings. So you're going to need to go to this one right now too. Okay, so remember I said we're going to make a survey and we're going to make a quiz. So when we make the quiz, we'll have to remember to come here and turn this button on to tell the Google form that it's a quiz, and then therefore you can add point values, right? In a survey, you wouldn't give them 2 points for telling you what kind of pizza they like, unless there's some type of a game. But obviously in a quiz or a test as a Google form, you'd want to let students know, is that 1.5 points, right? Because again, you can answer different long and short answer type of questions. So we're not going to turn that one on. Responses. So do you want to collect their email addresses? Well, if this is one of those anonymous type of sensitive question quizzes, or not quizzes, sorry, pardon me, surveys, you wouldn't turn this on, right? Because again, that you can't provide anonymity that way. Okay. Do you want the person who took the respondent who took your quiz or survey or whatever it was to get a copy of their answers? If you do, then again, you have to get their email address to do that, obviously. Do you want them to be able to edit their responses? Well, if this is a test or a quiz, probably not, but of course, depending on the type of test or quiz. But if it's a survey for your kids or for your parents or colleagues or staff or whoever, and why not let them change their answers? Okay. But again, it depends on the nature of the quiz. Okay. And then this next one down is really important for us as teachers as well to think about is, do we restrict the quiz to only people, in this case, our school district is Red Deer Polytechnic, but do we restrict it to users of Red Deer Public, Red Deer Catholic, Chinook's Edge? You pick your school district, just substitute the words in there for it instead of Red Deer Polytechnic. And what's nice about that, especially if it's with our kids that we're doing these, that then the only people there's your kind of one of your security pieces, because then only people at that school or school district can even have even a hope of finding the form. So therefore, if you're saying to yourself, I don't want parents to see these, and I'm pretty sure my students want their parents to see them. If you turn this one on, you would then the parent would actually need an email address for the school district. So okay, enough on that. Do we want to limit it to one response? Well, that goes back to, are you going to let them edit their answers? If you're going to do that, so one response would be click and it's gone. All response editing or allow response editing is that they can go back and they can change their answers after the fact. So again, depending on sort of what you're doing with the form, you may choose one of those options. Okay. All right. Presentation. The progress bar, unless you're doing a really long quiz or a long survey, you don't need to turn that on because it's sort of anticlimactic. It's like a little thermometer bar. And if there's only one page, there's not even actually a bar on. So anyways, where you might turn the progress bar on is, where is that now? Oh, I'll show you that. Or here, I'll just do it right here. Is if you use this button and you create what they call section breaks. And what those are, I'll give you an example of, maybe you might set this up in your own survey or your own Google form with your students, right? And let's say we come to the gender question. Is it, how do you identify as a male, a female, or other, right? And then depending on their choice, then what they would do is they get branched off to the I don't know, the boys section, the girls, or all the other categories would get sectioned off as well. And then you would see a progress bar. Okay, a long answer for something that's really not that important right now. Okay, but just so that you know. Do you want to shuffle the question order? Well, the only place I really ever use this feature is on quizzes or tests, so that even though if I'm looking at my screen and here's Chloe's looking at her screen, the order of the questions are going to be different on both our screens. So that sort of, I guess, prevents students from, I don't know, cheating off one another's screens, right? Confirmation message, let's do this right now, and let's go edit. And so if you didn't click edit, you don't want to put anything, it says your response has been recorded. But here's what I think, that whether it be the parents or the kids or whoever it is that you're administering your surveys or your Google Forms to, just thank them for their time at least, right? So just say, you know, thanks for completing the survey. Where's that? Oh my goodness, here. Sorry, thanks for completing a survey. Your answers will help me get to know you better. Okay, so then that way, when they hit the submit button, they'll get this message, right? So I'm just going to say save now, and it could be anything like that. It could be if it's an end of the year type of thing, or at a holiday, you know, have a great Christmas, you know, have a great summer, whatever. You can put whatever you want in there. Okay, show the link to submit another response. Well, again, depending on whether you're letting them have multiple attempts at it. So we'll just leave that one alone. View result summary. Well, if you want the people who are the respondents who are taking your survey or your quiz or whatever it is that you're using your Google form for, to see what everybody else is saying. So if this is a class party and they're planning the party and they're picking out what kind of foods and what kind of theme, you might let the kids see what everybody else is saying. And when you do that, it doesn't tell you who's saying what or voting for what category or anything like that. So it's kind of important. Disable autosave. I'm not sure why you would do that. So we would just leave that alone. And then these last two here is, are we going to collect email addresses every time somebody uses this form? If we turn that on, again, depending on the nature of it, you may want it on for parent surveys or things like that, but for private things, not so much. And then the last one, question default, is make questions required by default. Please turn that on. It will, in the long run, it will save you a lot of time, okay? And what that basically does is on our surveys or on our quizzes, if we choose to do those types of questions, then all questions are required. And then that means that students have to complete them all or answer them all before they can hit submit, okay? So then if there are questions, so here's a question that is optional on like a survey or get to know you type of survey with kids is, and this is what we use our paragraph answer for, is there anything else you'd like to tell me about yourself? Tell me about yourself that I haven't asked in the questions above or something like that. And then of course, I want to make that one optional, because if there isn't anything or they don't feel like sharing with me because at this point of the year, we don't really have that type of a bond yet, then fine. Then let them not answer that question, but still be able to hit submit. So, but it's easier to turn them off than turn them on. And the same thing goes for our quizzes, and I'll show you that when we get there. Okay, so you know everything I know now about Google Forms, basically. So the thing now we need to do is we need to create one. Okay, so let's do that together. I just want to bring up the checklist here for 1 sec here. We'll do the survey first. There it is. Madison, go ahead.
I am kind of wanting to teach like grade 1 and they can't really read at that age. Should I just make it as pretend like they can read?
Well, you can do it. You could approach it in one of two ways. You could do it that way. And then of course you're gonna have to use really simple language and images probably, right? Or you could create one where it's a take home and they complete the survey with mom and dad or something like that.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we've got this practice survey on the go. I'm just going to move it over right there. And so, of course, we have created it using a Google form. Now, there are lots of other tools out there. There's software you can buy There's websites you can use. So if for some reason you're feeling like you don't want to, not for this assignment, but once you're out there in the real world making your own decisions, if you don't want to use Google Forms and you want to use whatever, Microsoft has got one. I think all of the big software companies have one. So there's lots of different form making software, but we're going to use this one because it's Google. You should have watched the 7 rules video. We talked about those rules previously. Okay. Now, the other thing that you want to think about, again, is the age of your students, right? So again, like Madison was saying, what if it's little kids? Then you got to keep the language simple and that kind of stuff, right? And then trying to keep it as appropriate as you can for whatever level it is. Okay. And then, so for your own survey that you're going to do, you're going to call it, like I said, Sky Science Survey or English 9 Get to Know You Survey or Inventory, right? An interest inventory is just another fancy word for, a get to know you type of survey. Okay. And so if you're stuck for questions on this assignment, then what you can do is you can just type in interest inventory questions, or beginning of the year student survey or something like that. And there's lots of great questions. Okay. All right. So appropriate banner for now, really, whether what you put up here really doesn't matter to me. I just really want to know that you know how to do it. Okay. And then an appropriate description. So let's do that right now. So this is a survey, right? Remember, this is our friendly survey to our students or whoever it's to. And so we're going to just do that. Just say, please answer the questions below, or something like this. The questions below as best as you can. Your answers will help me to get to know you better. Great. And then here's our security kind of one again, is the only people that will see your answers are you and me. Use the word I. Okay. All right. So that gives the student answering this question, if there's anything that they want to tell you that might be private, that they know that no one else is going to see this. Now, just a reminder that there is an exception to that, right? Is at any time, if you give a student a promise of confidentiality or anonymity, and there's some criminal activity or some type of abuse or things like that are happening, then you are duty bound by law to report that, right? And that would be to your supervisor, your administrator, right? And then ultimately, depending on the seriousness of it, then your boss, who you report to, would report it to up until it gets to the police, right? Okay, so that's the only time that when you promise anonymity that you may have to kind of break a promise. All right, so we got that. And then the next thing, Bobby, down here is create at least 6 questions. So here's what we're going to do. Our first question, if you click on it here, we'll call them tiles, just so that we all have a common word that we can use. So on your tiles, obviously you can type in a question right here in the middle. If you can see that, there are little gray dots, and that allows you to move that tile around. We only have one tile there, so it doesn't really do anything right now. But if you were wanting to move questions around manually, you could do that. Okay. And then gives you the ability to add a picture. We're not going to worry about pictures until we do the quiz. Okay. And then it allows you to choose again the question style. Okay. It allows us to duplicate a question, trash a question, make it required or not. And it allows us to do some stuff right here. Okay. So this is going to be a short answer question. And in the short answer here, we're going to be very simple and just say first name, and that's it. Okay, so that's going to be our short answer, first one. We're going to hit duplicate. And then all I'm going to do is change the first 3 letters and make that one say last name. Okay, so those are both required, and they're both short answer. So that can, if you want, that can satisfy this one right here on the checklist, okay? Now, like any other checklist in the whole wide world, this is just the basic bare minimum requirements. If there's other questions or you want to add 5 short answer questions, knock yourself out. Well, why not do a full name? Well, you sure can if you want. It's totally up to you. If you want to do first, middle, and last, then just throw yourself another question in there and add your middle name in there if you want. Okay, I'm not going to. But the more tiles you have, one of the interesting things is then at the end, remember when we're going to create that spreadsheet? The more tiles you have, the more data you have to be able to sort from. So that is kind of handy. Okay, so we've got first name, last name, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of follow the order here now. So let's go back there and let's click wherever you want the question to appear. You need to click on that tile, and then when you add the question, it'll appear right below. But I want mine to appear after the last name, so I'm going to click that first and then add a question. Okay, so again, by default, multiple choice. And so if you want to do this for real right now and not do and sort of work the practice into making your own final product, you can do that. So if you're thinking of a topic or a subject or a grade that you want to administer this for, you can. I'm going to give you some just fun question. Well, fun, who knows? I'll give you some question suggestions. But if you wanted to type your own in for your own survey that you're going to hand in for marks, you can do that right now too. So, just an example of multiple choice. I'll just say from the. Hold on for one second here. Which is oh, sorry, I am going to go from this list, which is your favorite subject? Okay, I'll make that a question with a question mark, and then I'm just going to type in the core subjects. So language arts, social studies, math, math and science. Okay, so remember about going up to the eyeball. So now that we've done that and we've made that a multiple choice question, let's go to the eyeball and see what it looks like. Okay, so there we go. So it's telling me here this is now I'm looking at it as a respondent that my email address will not be shared. So that's good, right? That helps going, well, if I answer these questions, potentially, again, depending on the type of survey, I realize that I'm asking first name, last name here too, but then I know that that won't be shared. Okay, so I'm not going to fill this out. First name looks good. Last name looks good. Remember, the red dot indicates that it's a required question from this list, which is your favorite subject, and they will click, and they can only choose one. Now, this may not necessarily be the best question type for what I've asked here, but it's just for our demo purposes. Okay. All right. The next one that we need to add is we'll do paragraph answer last. We'll do checkbox. So now, actually, the checkbox question might have been a better option for this question, right? From this list, which are so here's the deal. Let's do that. Let's just copy this exact question. If you're just doing a demo with me, if you're doing one for your own subject and stuff, you will have to kind of just figure that piece out a little bit on your own. Okay, this is social studies, this is math, and this one's just science. Okay, so remember, this one's going to be multiple choice, and this one is going to be checkbox. Okay, so now if we go to the eyeball, so up in a multiple choice, we can only choose one, but in the checkbox, we could choose all of whatever you offer them there, right? So a checkbox is not always a very good one to put on a quiz or a test, but because I just find it confuses students. But definitely they're in a survey, it's perfect, because we could have said from the list below, check all of the subjects that you really like, and then they would have given them more options versus forcing them to make a decision here. So it's just, again, it's not a bad question or it's not information that we, that's sensitive or anything like that. It's just about giving them choices. Okay. The next one down then is the drop down. Okay. So let's do that. And you know what? Let's this is easy to get through this. Let's just stick with this theme. So I'm going to add a question. Remember, again, it comes as multiple choice, and we're going to make it a drop down. Okay, so I'm going to copy that and come back here. Okay, and then I'm just going to put my answers in here. So watch, we're going to go LA, social studies, math, and science. Okay, so we've got a drop down, we've got a checkbox, and we've got a multiple choice. So let's eyeball this one again, and you'll see the difference. So remember, you can only choose one. Here you can choose multiple, and here there's a drop down, right? So you could have asked them anything there and added that in there. But again, they only get one choice. So if one choice is the way to go, either one of those is acceptable. And then when we do the quiz part, you can actually assign a value to that, right? Okay. Drop down linear scale. Okay, here's a test question, so write this down in your notes. What is the other name for a linear scale? Like, what is the actual kind of proper name in statistics, at least, for a linear scale? And a linear scale, if I just do this, just in case you're going, what is he even talking about, Brad? Right, a linear scale will be like this, right? This is like, a happy face, this is the sad face, and this is somewhere in between, right? So that's a linear scale. What is did somebody type it in the chat? Is there a statistical name? Is there a cap on how many multiple choice questions? No. And Ron, you'll see that on the final exam. There is no number. Is there a maximum number of questions that Brad's going to ask on the final exam? Probably around 75. But there is no, I'm not aware of any. I've written 100 questions, so at least 100. Okay. Does anybody know the other name? Wait, is there a cap on it? Oh, sorry, per question? Well, not really either. I mean, I've seen them go up to G, I think, before on a quiz or one that I've taken. I would, again, depending on the nature, depending on the age and all that jazz, give them as many options as you want. Okay. All right. Nobody seems to know the name of this thing here. So this is a linear scale, right? Or at least that's what it is in Google Forms. The official statistical name of this is a Likert scale. Okay. You need to know that word for a quiz sometime. Okay. What is the other name for a linear scale? All right. Okay, here we go. Let's go back. You guys want a bit of a break? Nobody wants a break? Everybody just wants to keep going? Okay. All right. Okay, wait, sorry, here, a sec here. We drop down, perfect. Okay, so let's add a linear scale. So let's hit plus sign, and you see I added it here at the top, but maybe if I want it at the bottom, I can just drag it down to the bottom and then put it at the bottom. There we go. Okay, this can be a linear scale. I don't. This one I like to. How much do you like? And I'm just gonna pretend this is math, right? So what you can do here is you can go from 0 or 1 on your scale. So I would ask you to choose 1, and then some of the research says 5 questions is an amount to add to a linear scale. I'm going to go and tell you that we should add 4, and I'll tell you my reasoning. My reasoning is this: is that 5 gives them, if we go back here, right? Let's see, just a sec here. I'll actually use this one here. 3, 4, 5. 5 gives them the option to sit on the fence all the time. So it's like, well, I don't know. I don't really want to commit one way or the other. Then they can the 5 option gives them that ability. And I think that if you want information from people, don't give them the ability to sit on the fence. So 4 does force them then to either be on one side of the fence or the other. Even though it's an imaginary fence in that case. Okay, how much do you like math? Then 1 would be don't like it, whatever you want to like it. And then number 5 could be love it, or number 4, sorry, love it. And then if we go to our eyeball and you scooch on down, that's what it ends up looking like. Okay, so then again, see, again, I think it's much better. All right. Okay, what else we got going on? Oh, yes. Oh, we got to do this. So we want to do the email question. So I'll show you a way to do it right on the Google form. Okay, so let's scooch back to the top and make like click on last name and make that like your, I don't know, we'll call it your like your active question. And then we're going to add a question type here. Okay, again, or we could hit duplicate because it's going to be a short answer, but that's okay. I'll just do that way. Short answer. Okay. Now, let's pretend, let's just switch gears here for a second. Let's pretend this is going out to parents or to people outside of the school, and you wanted to know their email addresses. So if it's parents, maybe you want to know their email addresses because you're planning a field trip and you're going to need to get a hold of them after the fact or something like that, right? So what is your email address? Okay. And so again, your students, you probably wouldn't ask for their email address because you all know that I know all your email addresses are first name dot your last name at reddeerpoly.edu.ca. I know that, right? So for students, you don't really need to ask it, even for colleagues. But for, again, community members, parents, you might want to ask this question. Okay, so it's a short answer question. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to these 3 little dots, and it's going to give us this option to choose this response validation. So let's just do that again. This is just to, what we're going to do is going to ensure that they give us an email address. So click the 3 dots, go response validation. Okay, and then over here now, it gives you some drop-down menus of things that you can pick. And depending what you pick over on the left side, obviously these menus over here change. So we're going to say that their text in their answer must contain. Now, how do we ensure that how would we force them to type a valid email address? Does anybody know what? We only have to add 1 letter actually here under the text. Does anybody know what letter we'd add? Yeah, you bet, right? So we have to add the @ symbol, and then that means that we couldn't just type in you Brad McDermott and then not the @ symbol and then whatever, right? So we could add some qualifiers there. So we're going to do that. Again, it's required. Now I'd like you to go back to your eyeball for a second. Okay, scooch on down to your email address question. Type in an email address without the @ symbol. So in my case, I'll just Brad, and it could be really any address. Poly edu.ca, and if I hit go to the next question, it gives me an error message saying it must contain the @ symbol, and you're like, oh right, I need to throw that in there like so, then it's happy. Okay, so that's what that that we're limiting it to just our domain. And again, on your own version of this, ask questions that you really want to know about students, right? Just put yourself in that classroom and go, all right, this is my grade 7, whatever classroom. This is my dream job, my dream grade. What do I really want to know about these kids? These kids are my passion. So think about questions like that, because then again, you'll be able to use this down the road, okay? And then again, if it's for younger, like we were talking earlier, you can ask questions that their parents can answer, or some parent questions, a couple easy kid questions, that kind of idea. Also, the other thing that I should mention too is when we do these pick a grade, pick a subject assignments that you can do, you can pick always at our school, students are perfect. They know all the instructions, no matter what you tell them, they always do it. So all those kinds of things. So when we're planning and making lesson plans and things like that, we don't need to assume like, well, what lesson is this, or would the kids actually know this? We always go, yep, they're perfect kids. They know whatever we need to know them know in that instance. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The settings under the gear, by the way, here is, let me just close that. When I say the gear, what I meant is under the settings, they actually changed that. Now, it there used to be a gear to get to this, but now they put it up here. So that's what I mean under the gear. And I'll just put in, maybe I'll just put in brackets there, settings. Okay. All right. And then, oh yes, now the spreadsheet. So let's go back here. So let's pretend that this survey is exactly the way you want it. We'll pretend that you took the survey and you did number 7 and be a good pre-tester. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to responses. And remember, there's the little green kind of plus sign thing here. If you click that, it will create a spreadsheet. Okay. What this window is telling you is that I'm going to create a spreadsheet called Practice Survey Responses. Okay. It will be located exactly right below your survey. So wherever you tuck that survey away or wherever you created it from or whatever folder it's in, it will be right there with the actual Google form. Okay. I think there's no reason to change the name, but I guess you could if you wanted. Okay. Or if you were linking it to, let's say, more than one data source to one spreadsheet. So where that might be would be, I teach 7-1, 7-2, -3, -4, -5. I teach 5 classes of whatever. I would create one spreadsheet. And then what I'd want to do is, I remember up here, we could make a copy. I'd make all of those copies. And then I would link all that data back to one spreadsheet instead of 5 different spreadsheets. So anyhow, let's create it. Nothing really super duper cool or wacky or weird will happen, but a spreadsheet will appear. Okay. And then what it says in the rest of the instructions really is basically, let's get this set up here. So in row number 1, click on the number 1. Okay. And then on this number 1, let's just apply a different font to it. One that, this is yours. No one else is going to see this except for you. So add a font you like. Make it bigger. Okay. I don't care which ones you choose or what size, just as long as it's not the default Arial 10 point, I think it is. You can make it bold, you can make it italic, you can change the color, whatever you want there. I'll change the color. You don't have to change the color, but I did. And then the last 3 buttons here we're going to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to center the text in the, what is it? Here's a little bonus question for you. What are the little rectangles on a spreadsheet called? Like, what's their formal name? Thank you. Yeah, they're cells, right? So what this one does is it centers the text inside of the cell left to right. Okay, and so we're going to do that. We're going to do that. And don't worry about what's happening with the letters quite yet. We're going to go to the next one, and we're going to center that text from top to bottom, right in the middle of the cell. And then this last one, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the text. Okay, and then it makes it look like that. Okay, does anybody need me to do those steps again? Everybody's good? Right on. Okay, so when you hand this assignment in, my friends, I need to see at least one person's name in here, and it can just be yours. It doesn't have to be anybody, anybody special. Okay, well, you are special, but you know what I mean. You don't have to, you know what I mean. Okay, all right. Okay, so we did the spreadsheet. We did row number 1. You changed your banner at the top of the form. Your survey should be, in the end, should be limited to 1 response. So if we go back there and we go to settings, remember that's something that we could do right here. So we'll turn that on. I can't actually see that when I mark these from you, but it's on the honor system on that one. Okay. And then we did appropriate confirmation message. And then there is a bonus marks for trying out the multiple choice grid or the checkbox grid. And I'll show you in our own world where we find those. Okay, or where you might find one. You might find one right here. So if we look at oops, that was the wrong thing. Sorry, my apologies. Wait, that is the right thing. Oh, what the heck here? Sorry, let me just go. Let me open a different window. I just want to show you something here. Yours doesn't seem to be right for some reason. Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Let me click that. Okay. So this is a multiple choice grid. So it looks like that. Think of it even like looking like a rubric, right? I could have had other rows and other columns. So if you want to try this, either the grid, or so you can either do it with multiple choice circles or the checkbox squares. You can do that for extra points, and you can ask anything you want to ask. Okay, but like I said, in the real world, that this is kind of what you would use those for, that kind of idea. Okay, any questions about the survey? Okay, one last thing then. When we go back to responses here, remember there's the 3 dots beside the little green guy. So once you create a spreadsheet, then it gives you some options. Do you want to get email notifications for each new response? Well, if this is like me, and I have 3 sections of EDUC 1302, and there's 40 people in each section, that's 120 emails I'm going to get saying, oh, hey, Sarah has done whatever. Hey, Chloe finished your form. So again, not practical for when there's lots of people, I don't think. But if this was the 10 parent volunteers that you wanted for an event, you could get these email responses going, okay, whew, okay, I got them all now. I'm good. You know, that kind of a thing, right? And then, of course, you can forget this next one down. You could unlink the form from the spreadsheet, and you can download the answers on as a spreadsheet. You can print all the answers and you can delete them, but we can't do these 2 yet because we don't actually have any responses yet. Okay. Okay. Last kick at the cat for surveys, because then I'm going to switch over to the quiz, which will go easy because it's almost identical. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So let me close some tabs up here. I want that one closed. That one closed. I don't need that one or this one or that one. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. Now we are going to create another Google form. Okay. So in our drive, let's go new Google Forms. Okay. And we get the same purple one. Okay. Now let me bring the checklist up for the quiz assignments. So all the same ideas. We're using Google Forms. You're calling it, again, if you want to follow around with my pretend fool around example, you can. Or if you want to start building your own as I talk, you can do that. Okay, but just give it appropriate name. So here we're just going to, I'm just going to call this not math. Let's do science. Science are easy. We could ask easy questions. Science 6 quiz. Okay. And the only other thing I'm going to add on here is just section Z, just so that I know for my other classes. So again, we created the name. I clicked outside. It created the title right here. So again, if I wanted to duplicate that, I could go make a copy for section C, make a copy for section D, that kind of idea. Organizing folder, starring it if you want. You know what all of these other tools are for already. Okay. We do need to do some things under responses. There's nothing to do yet, but we will have to go there. But here, remember the first thing we need to do is we got to turn it on and make it a quiz. So if you click that, then some other settings pop up. Okay. So the first one it's saying here is that when do you want to release your grades? Okay. Do you want to release it immediately or after you've actually manually checked the answers yourself? So I'll tell you where both of these are useful. Okay. If you go immediately and you have a short answer or a paragraph, and this is a note to self because this might catch you as well. If you have like a combo kind of test, and let's say you have multiple choice questions, and then you have, let's say, 2 short answer and a short essay. Okay, short answers and paragraph or essay questions do not get marked by Google Forms. They don't know what you want. So those are questions that you have to mark manually. Okay, so if you click immediately after the submission, they will get the answers, or they'll know how well they did on the multiple choice portion, but they won't know the other parts. As a matter of fact, they will actually get a 0 for the short answer or paragraph answers. And Google just does that because they haven't been marked yet, so you don't get any marks. So you get 0 marks. And if you don't do this sort of explanation I'm doing right now, when you do this with your students on quiz or test day and you haven't told them this, they'll freak when they see that they got 39. There was 40 multiple choice questions. They got 39. And then the other questions they got 0 for. So now they got 39 out of 70 and they're freaking out, right? So anyways, we need to tell them that information. Okay, locked mode you can't do anything with unless your, and this is for Chromebooks, are managed by the school district. And so that means that if they're managed, then you can turn this on, and it really basically turns a Chromebook into a lockdown browser. Okay, we don't have that here at Polytechnic, so I can't turn it on for anybody. Okay, now after the answer, what do you want them to be able to see? Do you want them to be able to see their missed questions, the ones that got incorrect? I do. Do you want to show them the correct answers? I don't. My philosophy is if they got it wrong and they want to know the answer, then what they can do is they can look it up. Okay, but that's my personal point of view. If that's not yours, when you create your own quizzes and tests, you can let them see the answers. Okay, and then the last one is, do you want to show them the point values? Well, sure, right? So so what I'd like you to do is change the default point value to 1. And again, kind of like the same reason that we turned on make all the questions mandatory, is so that it's much easier to change 1 or 2 questions point values than adding 1 point for 50 multiple choice. Because if you make that 0 or any other number, you will, and then be doing it manually. So like I said, it's easier just to give all the multiple choice or those types of questions 1 mark each, and then anything that's a paragraph or short answer that's 5 or 10 marks or how much, then you can change those ones. Okay, so we got that. Responses, here it's a quiz, so we're not going to allow response editing. At the end, just before you're ready to submit this to me, I know this sounds like, oh, Brad, you're just trying to catch us to make us forget something. But if you turn it on now, every time you go to the eyeball, you've taken it one time. It won't let you take it anymore. So yeah, so as you're designing it and testing it, you need to leave this off. Okay, it's when it's ready to be like delivered to your class. Here's the quiz, everybody. Then you want to turn that on so they can only answer once. Okay, presentation here. Normally, I would turn on shuffle the question order, but we're going to have a question that's a video question. And if you do that, what it does is it separates the question in the video. So we can't do that for this assignment. Okay, let's do the confirmation message again. Thanks. Oopsie. Thanks for your answers. Have a good weekend. Like that, right? Again, just what you put in there doesn't matter to me as long as you show me how to do it. Okay, can they show, do you want to show the link to submit another response? I don't. Okay, are we going to show them how everybody else did? No, not on a quiz. Okay, again, we'll leave autosave on. We know that we're not collecting necessarily email addresses here because it's kids we know. And then again, we're making them all required. Okay, so if we have all those settings done, then you're ready to make your quiz. And on the, I'll just move this over here a little bit. On the checklists, let's make it a little bit bigger, is we're going to have some questions. So we're going to have short answer again, which is just going to be first name, last name. Okay, so first name. And you see a Google changed it automatically to short answer. I didn't create that here. I'll show you that again. I'll just make this, I won't make it short answer.
Okay. I found this on the web for
Oh, Siri, be quiet. And then I'm just going to do this manually, last name, and it changed it to short answer again. So sometimes it's useful. Most of the time it's a pain in the butt. Okay, so they're both required. The thing though, now you have to decide, remember we made, this is a quiz, so that means that every tile that we add gets a mark. So are we giving them a mark for their first name and last name? I typically do not. It's up to you. There are no marks for or against you on this assignment if you give them a mark for their first name and last name. Okay, it's up to you. All right. Oopsie, sorry. Okay, so we did that. Let's do a multiple choice question. Okay, and so I'm going to, oopsie, first time. Whoa, what's going on here? There we go. Okay, let's add a multiple choice question. And since this is a Science 6, I'm going to just say, what is a slice of tree called? And we're going to say that we're going to call it a tree cookie. Oops. Tree donut. Disc. And the fourth one's always usually the hardest one, especially if it's not the right answer. Slice. How's that? Okay, and then what we would do here then is we're going to go to answer key, and we are going to select the correct answer. This is the one that usually gets me in trouble, especially if I'm changing questions up from quiz to quiz, term to term sometimes. Sometimes I might change a question up a little bit, and sometimes you can give more than one answer. Or conversely, you can give no answers. But I find it better. Actually, students are less upset when you give double answer than there is no answer. So anyways, there's the correct answer. We know it's worth 1 point. Again, remember, we can adjust it if we wanted, right? I mean, you could make them all 2 or whatever you want. But anyway, okay, there we go. Multiple choice question. The next one that you're going to do is, I didn't do the paragraph one on the sample survey, but remember, it's just one that should not be required, and just asking them just an open-ended question. Okay. All right. So there's just that note about they don't get marked automatically. Okay, let's do a checkbox question. Now, again, with a checkbox question, first of all, I don't really recommend that you use them on a quiz. And if you do use them, which you can, you just need to be specific in your instructions. Okay. So, what is the name? Let's see here. Let's do this. What are names for our star? Our solar system star. Solar systems star. Okay, so now that way, what we can do is we can go here and we can go check boxes, and and then the other thing we need to do, that's, so again, remember I said we need to give them specific instructions. Please choose only 2. Okay, so and then of course you could explain to them, if they choose all 4, they're just going to get the question wrong. Okay, so so here where there's a checkbox, what's the names of our solar system star? Well, first of all, we call it the sun, right? What else could we call it? We could call it Sol. I don't know what else. It doesn't matter. Okay, and then here is then when you go to the eyeball and you scooch it down here, so then they would choose 1 or 2, right? And then, oopsie, yep, leave. And then you here still have to assign that one's right, that one's right, but these other 2 that I can't think of are not right. Okay, so then we would say done there. Okay, and so that is a checkbox question, and then a drop down. We've done that one in the survey, which is a drop down, and we can say what? Oopsie, let's see here. What is the other? Or what is the? How about the proper name for the Big Dipper? Okay. And then you can put your answers in here. I'm just going to make 4. I'm going to make this one the correct answer. So it's Earth's major. Okay. Right now, I am going to just quickly make that one the correct answer as well. Okay. And then Ursa Minor. Orion. And Pegasus. Okay, and then so we already made this one the correct answer. So that's a drop down. What does that look like again? What is the proper name for the Big Dipper? They only get to choose one. Okay, and of course we know that, pardon me, we know that one's the correct answer. Okay, and so that's all the question types. Now, one question, let's do the video question first, okay? So you can ask a video question in a Google form quiz, but it's kind of a two-part thing. So on our little side toolbar here, I didn't explain all of these tools. I guess I'll do them right now real quick. This one is import questions. So I'll give you an example for us. Again, section C, section D, section Z. And so let's say on each one of those quizzes, there are some slight nuances different. So there might have been a couple things maybe we talked about in one class that we didn't get to, or we talked about it because it was a point of interest, but I didn't talk about that in the other classes. So what I can do is I can bring questions in from one quiz to another, or one Google form to another, which is really handy. Think of it like in a final exam, where I might want to draw questions from quiz 1 and 2 and 3 instead of retyping them all and retyping all the answers. So that's where import questions is really, really nice. Add a title and description. Well, that's basically just what's in this gray box. Done it. Okay. Add an image. You can click this add an image here. Each one of these boxes also has an image icon on it. So if he's going to make a liar out of me. Oh, this because it just dropped down, it doesn't. But you'll see on this one, it's got an image there as well. Okay, we're now at a YouTube movie, and then the section break, we're not going to do one of those for this class. Okay, so it doesn't really matter where you are in your quiz or what tile you have selected. Just, I would say something below their first name and last name. So I'm going to make it my last question. Okay, so I'm going to have video. So I'm going to go add video. Now, of course, if you know the URL or you've been on YouTube and you're like, oh, that's the one right there, you can just you can go there and paste the URL and the URL in, and it will take you to the video. Here, just for our fun purposes, I'm just going to go, I'm just going to type in solar system. And I'm just going to choose the first video. We're just going to pretend. What does it say here? Oh, yes, I know. We click on it. It gets the blue line around it. We say select, and it adds the video right here. So what we're going to do is in our instructions there where it says untitled video is we're going to go, please watch the video and answer the question below. Now, if you have more than one question about the video, this is where it would be handy to have it as the last one. Or if you're going to have it in the middle or somewhere else, then just say, please watch the video and answer question 4, 5, 6, and 7 or something like that. Okay. All right. So what we can do is we can also here, if you click this little circle, so there's two ways you can handle this movie. You click on it, it gives you little blue handles, and you can make it bigger, which I recommend that you do. And then if you click off of it, you get the little gray circle with the 3 dots in it. And what I do is I use that one to just center it on my thing. So again, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a look at that and see what that looks like, especially the video. So if I click on it, perfect. So now I know it's going to work. Okay, so that's good. And then so I'm going to add a question below it. And I haven't watched the video. Of course, I would watch the video and have questions for my students or a question, but here's what we're going to do. Let's pretend the video, let's pretend the video said that it told us that there were 88 constellations in our night sky, which is correct, by the way. So according to the video, comma, how many constellations do we have in our night sky? Okay. And then this could be just a multiple choice, right? So we could go 80, 98, or 89, 48, or 88. And again, don't forget to assign the correct answer, which is 88. And then click on that. And then again, if we were to look at that with the eyeball, and I scooch on down, there's my video. According to the video, or you could say a video above, how many constellations do we have in our night sky? And then it gives an opportunity to do that. So, oh, we need some images. Okay, so here's the other thing we can do here is if we were to just go here. So we'll get a couple pictures of the sun, right? So again, remember we can add a picture here. And whether you click that, add a picture there, or you add the picture for here, it's the same window that pops up. Now, I don't have any images of the sun, so I can just do a good old-fashioned Google image search and just type in the sun. And I want a real picture, so I don't know, I'll grab this one. Okay, and I can go insert. Okay, put the picture there. I'm going to add just one more picture so that you can see kind of what's going to happen here. Sun. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so again, let's eyeball it. Let's see what that looks like. So I've only got 2 questions there, but you can see it's setting up for a 3rd and a 4th. So what are the names of our solar system star? Blah, blah, blah. There's the question. So you're going to need to add a picture to or pictures to at least one of your questions. And again, if this was younger kids, grade, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, you could, with using images, you could put a successful review or some kind of a little mini test or whatever together and get kids to do it for sure. Okay. All right. So that's the images. You have to have at least, well, all the questions are going to be required. Don't forget here also, we did not, oopsie. We did not do the paragraph answer yet. So just below or somewhere else in your for real one that you're going to hand in for marks, make sure that you have a paragraph question in there. And of course, if it's a paragraph question, it should be worth more than 1 mark. So then you'll have to go into the marks and turn give it a higher point value. Okay. All right. What else do we got going on here? You should change the banner to top. We did that. Wait, let me go back here. Oh yes. Let's do the spreadsheet now. Okay. So I've got my questions. Again, are they, you've already tested this. There's no spelling mistakes. All your answers are right. You don't have too many answers or not enough answers, all that jazz. And so what we can do then is go to responses and we can click the green spreadsheet button, I guess, if you want to call it. Remember, same idea, exact same name as the actual Google form with responses. And remember, it's located in the exact same spot that the actual Google form is in your Google Drive. So again, we're going to change row number 1. We're going to click on it. And we are going to go here and we are going to go Lifesavers, or I pick whatever font you want, doesn't matter. Remember, you're the only one that's doing that. I'll choose this one this time. Pick whatever size. I can bold it up again. There we go. I don't want to bold it. Okay. And then I'm going to go center, and wrap the text. So it's that. Maybe you want to give the text a color again. You can pick any color you want. Oh, I don't know. Let's go green. There we go. Okay. All right. And all right, let's go down here and let's see if I'm missing anything. Yep. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. Now, so again, for this assignment, right? Just like all assignments have to have the checklist and rubric submitted, you're going to be submitting 3 things. Okay. One thing is the checklist that's completed by you, showing me that you went through it and went, yep, check, or cross it off or highlight it or whatever. So you're going to have a checklist, you're going to have the actual survey, and then you're going to have the spreadsheet that goes with it. So here's how those things get submitted. Okay. Now I was actually smart enough and prepared enough today. Just a second, I think I have it there. There we go. Okay, I created an incognito window in with my student account earlier. So on this assignment, if we go here, there's a couple things that you're going to do. So there is obviously a tutorial that goes with this for anybody that misses, or if you need to review. There is a quick 1-minute video showing you how you submit your Google survey, but I'm going to show you. Okay. So again, what you'd be doing here is you would be adding 3 things. You'd be adding in your copy of this, and again, with the somehow you've indicated that you've gone through this to me. Okay. And so you add that. You'd add your Google form. So now I didn't really create a Google form in my Google account here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back there, and I don't have one in my drive here, but I'll just show you how this would work. Is you'd go add or create. So this is for the actual Google form. We'd go add or create a link. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your survey. Okay, you're going to look at your questions, and you're going to say, okay, this is ready to go. I'm ready to hand this into Brad. What you're going to do is you're going to, this is just, again, for the Google form only. Then you're going to go to the eyeball, and up here is this URL that ends in, and I don't know if I can make that bigger, can I? No, I can't. That says, ends in what says view form. I want this whole URL to be copied. Okay. And then in Google Classroom, oops, where's my student account? Then what I do is I just paste that link and go, now it's going to tell me I don't own it, so I'm not going to be able to add it, right? Or maybe it will, who knows? Let's see. I can't believe it let me do that. Okay, and that's okay. And so then that's the Google form. I'd add my copy of the checklist, and for the spreadsheet, because you've created it as it's an actual thing. So then what you can do is, again, you just go add or create from Google Drive, and you're going to add your checklist, and you're going to add your spreadsheet. Okay. What if the kids use someone else's names? Well, I mean, I guess they can. I guess they can. I mean, and that might happen. I mean, you could always ask other questions too, Graham. You could ask a little bit more impersonal questions. I mean, it could be something as simple as, what is your school district email, or what is your student ID number? Because then, like, if it was your friend or somebody else trying to, I don't know, pull one over the teacher's, eyes, they wouldn't know that. And again, if they put in the wrong ID number, it wouldn't match up. So maybe that, I mean, no matter what thing you always build, people always figure out a way to kind of work around it, right? Okay, questions about surveys, or question about the Google Forms quiz? Is there anything you want me to do again? Okay, if not, of course, it will be in this video. All right, if there aren't any more questions about surveys and quizzes, what time is it? I think we should start a little bit of switch gears and just go back to notes for a little bit. What I'd like to do is I'd like to start taking some notes on lesson planning. It's quite a bit of stuff to talk about. So I'd like to do that. So now, with that said, if we're switching gears from this to lesson planning, do you want a quick 5-minute break or so? Ruan, go for it. What's up?
Yes, I would like a quick 5-minute break.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, let's do that. So it is 2:30. I'll call it 2:35 on my clock. Let's come back at 2:40. So I'm going to take a break too. So I'll just mute my camera and my mic, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. So stretch your legs. All right, everybody, we're back. Anybody formulate any questions while I was while we were gone? Everybody's good? Okay. Let's do this then here. Let me just make a new page. And I'm just going to close that. So you can't let me forget. I'm just going to put this on the screen. Oh, one thing, a couple things actually. Don't forget that if you want to try for some bonus points, you can do a checkbox grid or a multiple choice grid as a test question as well. So if you wanted to try that for some couple extra marks, go for it and try that. Okay, so I'm just going to close the checklist up all the way up there. And then the other thing that I wanted to tell you was that we're going to be working on that. And then in prep for next week, what I'd like you to do is there's a hyperdoc here. All you have to do on this hyperdoc, and we're going to learn about hyperdocs, and you're going to be creating your own hyperdocs, is you just need to go to these links and you need to like listen or watch or take a look at the picture, you know, that kind of idea. And then there's a quick little try this Edpuzzle thing and see if you can get it to work. I think it should work for you, but let me know, okay? And then there's just is really just a way of organizing the readings for you as an online student. That might be a way for me during the week, right? So do that again, and then you can do all the way up to the self-assess piece right here, and then stop, okay? And the show what you know will be us actually creating an actual lesson plan together, and then you'll have your own that you're going to create, okay? So don't go ahead and create your own yet, because I don't want you to go all that time and effort and maybe not do it right, and then then we ask you to do it again, okay? So that's that hyperdoc that I'd like you to look at there. And then there are, there's other readings and stuff that you can do. I mean, lesson planning is probably the most important, at least one of the most important skills that you have as a teacher. Okay. Okay. I want you to think in your head, just answer this question in your head for now. Why is it that you think we lesson plan? So why do we lesson plan? If you hear from me and you hear from other people, blah, 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 lesson planning, it's important. It's, you hear all this stuff, this hype around it. Why do you think it's so important? Okay, keep thinking about that for 1 second. I just want to, no, can't do what I wanted to do. That's okay. All right. So either using your microphone or just in the chat, put in, why do you think lesson planning is so important? What does it do for us? What does it do for the teacher? What does it do for the student? Nobody has any answers? Nobody can think of one single thing it does. Oh, there we go. All right. So those are all good things, Ron. Oh, come on, like that. True guide. True story. All these are good. Okay. Let's start off at the top. So if we answer or write the question down, why do we lesson plan? So here's our title, lesson planning. Okay. And then if we ask that question, why do we lesson plan? And so, yes, so it helps us with time management. And man, I can't remember if I saw that on our list in the chat, but what I'm going to do, can't see my notes. I know. There you go. All right. Okay. So time management. And then I'm also just going to add here, it helps us, keeps us organized, or helps keep us organized. Keeps us organized. Okay. let me just see here. Sorry. Lots of things in there now, right? It gives you that feeling that you're of being prepared, right? You're not winging it. So it gives you that confidence that I've got what I need to deliver this lesson right here in my hot little hands or on my iPad or, however you're going to deliver your lessons up. Okay. What else do we have here? Okay. Who wrote that one down? Haley wrote down outcomes. I'm also going to write another word down for us. So yes, our outcomes and our objectives. Okay. And I'm going to write this down now, and we'll talk more about it maybe later when we're doing our lesson plans. So if I ask you this on a test, this is the answer I'm looking for. Where do outcomes come from? And the correct answer for that, if you didn't know this already, is from the government in the form of, you'll hear people talk about programs of study, right? So outcomes are the curriculum outcomes or the curricular goals, if you want to call it that the government says then that every kid in grade 4 taking grade 4 math, by the end of grade 4, they'll know all this stuff. That is the outcomes. And pick your subject in the same example. Okay. So those are outcomes. Objectives come from the teacher. Okay. And what I'm talking about here is that for every outcome, there'll be a way that a teacher will address that outcome. So if we pick everybody in our class, and right now there's 16 people in this class, if I said, okay, let's teach a lesson on boats and buoyancy. And I said, here's the outcome, right? In grade 2 science, I believe it is. Here's the 2 or 3 for sure. Here's the outcome. And what I'd like you to do tomorrow is come to class with a lesson on boats and buoyancy. We would have many, many different versions of that lesson plan. So the outcomes come from you. They're really, the objectives are kind of how you're going to tackle the outcomes and what you're going to do in class to try to achieve that outcome or outcomes by the end of the lesson. Okay. So, but if we boil it right down again, what I'm looking for is, where do outcomes from? Outcomes come from, and you'll say the government. And if I say where do objectives come from, you'll say the teacher. Okay. All right. So by the end of our time working on these, you are going to be creating a lesson plan that will look something like this. Okay. Now, of course, I've got tips and tricks and where to find things, kind of notes to myself inside my little template here. But you'll have one that kind of looks like this in the end. Okay, but of course it'll be nice and filled out. And I did I put an exemplar in there? Yes, right here. This is a completed one by a student. So you'll have a lesson plan like that. You'll have a rationale, and then all the other goodies that go with this lesson plan. Okay, so that's kind of where we're aiming for, what we're shooting for this project. Okay, all right. And so our lesson plans are going to be a combination of sort of 2 methodologies or 2 foundational people that have brought us to where we're going to talk about this lesson plan. Now, as we talk about this lesson plan and ways of lesson plan and people and names and all that jazz, just remember that there are loads and loads of ways to lesson plan, right? If you were to go on a search engine right now and even just type in lesson plan templates, I did that just recently, and it was almost 40 million different templates, right? And that's, of course, templates that from people like me who I don't have my template out there, right? So there's probably way more than 40 million even. So just know that the way that I'm teaching you to do this is a way that works for me and has worked for many, many other people along the way. Okay. And I have taken all of the pieces of different types of lesson plan formats and the ideologies or the theoretical pieces from people. And this is where I've landed after 30 some years of teaching. So this is one example. If you go into another class with Brent or Caitlin or pick any of our ed instructors and they show you a different lesson plan template, don't be going, well, that's not the way that Brad showed me. Be thinking, okay, very interesting. Is there anything on this lesson plan template that I'd like to add to my current template? Or maybe you've got your whole own idea for a design. So just be open-minded that way. Okay. So the two people that are going to get us to a completed lesson plan template are Madeline Hunter. And some of you might have heard of her before. Okay. And the other gal's name is Marcia Tate. Okay. So one of the things that we have to do is we just have to get a little patriotic for a second and just acknowledge that Madeline Hunter was initially a Canadian. She was born in Canada, eventually moved down to the United States to work at, I think, UCLA it was. Anyhow, so this whole notion of Madeline Hunter's methodology comes from a Canadian. We got to go, yay, right? Okay. So second, I just got to scroll my notes here. All right. So if we talk about Madeline Hunter, we're going to talk about it with, again, what I've done over a period of time is sort of splice together some parts, because again, if you were to do a search engine for Madeline Hunter, good, bad, otherwise, there's lots of different versions of her methodology. So we're going to go, if I ask you on a test or a final exam or something and said, tell me about Hunter's methodology, it's the one that was described in class, not anything else. Okay. So we're going to have 9 steps. So I think you can find anywhere between about 6 to 9 if you were to look on the internet. Okay. So we're just going to start off here and we're going to list them off. Okay. So step 1 is the anticipatory set. I'm only going to spell that one time because it's a very long word. Anticipatory set. And I may or may not have even spelled that right. I think I did. That's okay. And then, so we could also be fondly love the abbreviation AS, so the anticipatory set, or we can borrow a term from Marcia Tate and her kind of ideas around lesson planning, and we can call our anticipatory set the hook. And you might have even heard of it, referred to that previously. Okay, so either word, either way, acceptable. Okay. So if I were to ask you what is the first step of Madeline Hunter's lesson design, you could say the hook or the anticipatory set. Okay. All right. Number 2. Okay. Now, when I share another document with you, you'll see that I've got these listed as number 2, 3, but it doesn't really matter to me if you swap them around. So 1 is purpose. And in brackets, they put outcomes. And then number 3 is input. Okay. So, and I'll describe each one of these right now. Okay. So purpose and outcomes really is just that sort of is that stuff that comes from the government that says, again, by the end of the lesson, students will know what will they know, right? So that's the purpose and outcomes portion. Input is, and I'll write this down, are any terms, phrases. I'm going to throw in the word equations in there that they need to know. Okay, so here's an example of what I'm talking about. If I took you all into a science lab and I said, pass me the Erlenmeyer flask, probably most of you could do that, right? Because you've learned that word, you've learned what an Erlenmeyer flask looks like, you've probably used one. But again, if you didn't explain that term to students that didn't know that, and you said, okay, everybody grab their Erlenmeyer flask for this part of this experiment, they'd all look at you like, what are you talking about? Right? So it's no different than you knowing what a football is, what a steering wheel is, what a can of root beer is, right? So we need to teach them those terms, phrases, those words that they need to be successful. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. I just need to open up a file here, and I'm going to ask you this. So on my screen, I'm just going to do this. No, it was a very straight line. Can you say, yeah, we're good. Okay. I'll do an easy one. Okay. So we all should know just by recognizing this, this symbol that this is going to be a division question, right? And then when we're teaching this concept to kids, there's certain things that we need for them to know. Is this area up here at the top has a name, and that's the answer to a division question. Don't answer that. Don't tell me what the name is quite yet. And then this number outside, we'll call it the equation, I don't know, bracket. It probably has a real name. I don't even know. What is that called? And then what is the number inside here called? So anybody remember what's the number at the top called? Did you learn this back in the day? What's the answer to a division question? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a Q. Nobody knows? My goodness. It's a quotient. You're all too scared to answer. Okay, you need to know that.
Everyone already wrote it down.
Oh, am I falling behind here? Oh, that's one thing I liked about the chat. It doesn't automatically update. So nice work. Okay, perfect. Okay, what is the number outside here called? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a D. But it's a bit tricky because the one on the inside starts with a D as well. Oh. All right, well, Greg, you took a shot at it, so I'm going to give you A for effort, but you save your answer for the next question. Okay, so the number outside is called the divisor, and the number on the inside is called the dividend. Okay, so again, just emphasizing my point that you need to teach your students those names as well. And don't forget, in a long division question, there's multiplication and subtraction. So you need to talk about, the words that are around multiplication, and then of course the words that are in and around subtraction. And then of course we haven't even introduced a remainder yet, right? So, okay, so that's input. Okay, let me go to the next number 4. Okay. Hold on for one sec here. There we go. All right, step number 4 is there's 2 words we can use, and either one's acceptable. So we'll use modeling, and I know you can spell it with 2 L's. I just like to spell it with 1, and I'm not. I think both ways are correct. Or this one is demonstration, modeling or demonstration, right? So again, if I was talking about a specific type of beaker in a science lab, I might want to show my students how to use that. If this is a gym class and today we're doing layups, then I need to model that, right? You're in shop class, pick your food fashion shop, whatever, and you want students to make a product of some sort. You need to demo that, right? Same thing with long division. If I want my students to learn long division and show them how the steps of long division, I need to model that. Okay, so modeling, demonstration, exactly what it sounds like. Okay, number 5 is guided practice. Okay, And I'm just going to put a division question on here. I'll just do something easy. 6, 8 divided by 2. So what guided practice is, it would look like this. And you don't have to answer. I'm just going to mention people's names. I'll just pretend we're having a conversation, okay? I say, Madison, what's the first step that we do in this question? And of course, remember, we have perfect students, perfect everything. Madison would tell me the correct answer. She'd say, hey, Brad, you just say, how many times does 2 go into 2? And I would say it goes in there just 1 time, right? And then I would say to the next person, I'd say, Haley, what's the next step? Chloe, what's the next step? And I might do that for 2 questions, 3 questions, depending on how much time you have. And so I'd guide students through that. And so we would work on these questions together, okay? Then number 6 is check for understanding. Check for understanding. And because, again, that's a big, long, old thing to write out every time that we're talking about this, we can use the abbreviation of CFU. Okay, so again, if you saw CFU on I'll just show you here on this demo student one, this exemplar, right? So in their lesson plan, they put in modeling, guided practice, and showed me where different things are occurring. Okay, and you'll need to do the same thing on yours, right? So, oops. So anyhow, so when we check for understanding, we're doing just exactly that. We are just trying to find out in some way whether kids are getting it or not. And of course, our number one way of checking for understanding is by asking questions, just verbal questions, asking, I'll just say oral / verbal questions, right? And if I am doing guided practice and I'm saying, hey, Madison, what's that step? And she gives me the step and I say, hey, excellent work. And what's the next step? So even in that, you are constantly checking for understanding. And of course, we can do that in a written format, in our assignments, in our assessments, and those kinds of things as well. And even though, and if you want to put a little star beside this, even though it is number 6, checking for understanding occurs literally from the first word you speak when you're going to talk about, deliver a lesson to the very end. So you're always checking for understanding a million times throughout the day. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one, and that's number 7. And number 7 is independent practice. Independent practice. Okay. And just exactly what it sounds like, it's that. Except for I want us to put this in brackets. Let's just do this right in it. It is not just homework. And I'll explain what I mean, or what I mean there. So independent practice, you should give your students, so use the long division example. If I were to talk about that and we do some examples together, I need to give my kids time in class to work on a couple problems, because then that way I can see how my kids are doing, if they're getting it or not. And it also gives them an opportunity to go, oh, I don't get it, right? It gives them that opportunity to do that. So it should not just be homework. And that's often what happens, though, is that it's like, oh, shoot, I'm out of time again. All right, questions 1 to 10 on page whatever, have those done for homework tomorrow, right? We do that. And so I'm just saying, don't always give time in class to work a little bit on what you want them to accomplish, okay? Number 8 is closure, okay? Now, closure is exactly that. It would be like if you're talking about an essay, beginning, a middle, and end, right? It would be the conclusion. It would be the summary of the lesson. And as a matter of fact, closure does 2 things. One thing it does is it does summarize, or like you do some review at the end of the lesson. Summary / review. Okay, so it can do those two things. And then the other thing that it does, and this is the one that lots of people forget when I ask this question on a quiz, to list the two things or whatever, most people get either summary and review or they miss this one, is it brings the lesson to an end. Brings the lesson to, I'm going to say a definite end, and I'll give you an example in that too, a definite end. Okay, so it'd be something like this. Okay, my summary and review could be like an exit ticket, or it could be some questions, or it could be a Kahoot, or it could be another type of game or something. So I've done that. I've given them 5 minutes, the kids 5 minutes to do that. Now I want to do one of two things. So if like I'm an elementary teacher, I might want to move from social to science now, or from one subject to another, right? Or if I'm middle school or high school, it might be my students are ready to leave my class and go into another place. So then in an elementary, you might say something like this. Okay, boys and girls, put away your math stuff and line up for gym, right? Bringing the math lesson to a definite end, and now we're doing something else. And so the same thing would happen in those older settings as well. All right, everybody put your stuff away, get ready for the lunch bell, the end of school bell, the whatever bell to go to your next class. So it's that bringing a lesson to an end and summary and review. Okay, now the 9th step is actually not Madeline Hunter's. It's by a guy named Dr. Fred Jones. And so the last one is, and I think it is like uber important, peer teaching. Okay, and really, if you talk to the experts, people see this as a critical, important part. Okay, and let's just put in Dr. Fred Jones. Let's just put his name down, because you might see that on a quiz or a test somewhere along the way. Okay, so peer teaching is exactly that. It is kids helping one another. It is giving them opportunities to work together. It could be in math. This happens often, and this might even happen to some of you before, where your teacher explains how to do long division, and you just don't get it. And so now what I've done is I've shown you 6 examples of a way to solve a problem that I know of. I can't think of any more. You still don't get it. Well, peer teaching is really nice to say, okay, here are 5 kids in the class are 12 years old, pick your age, and they get it. So why don't we try and get that person to show the one that is not understanding? So peer teaching can be a really, really powerful tool. And of course, what is the best way that you know that somebody actually understands something is if they can teach it, right? So if one kid can teach it to another and vice versa, that's the pinnacle, right? Is that they know it well enough to show someone else how to do it, right? Okay, so that's Hunter's steps. Okay, and there is a document right here in Google Classroom that if you click on it, you get a document that will kind of give you a little bit more information on Hunter's steps. Okay, so there's that for you to use as a resource when you're doing your own lesson plan. And like I said on the exemplar, you'll need to label all of those on there. Okay. All right. There's more notes, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, and I apologize. But once we get finish the notes, then we can maybe start. So what time is it now? What time do we go till again? Do we go till 4? 3, yeah, 3:50. Right. Okay. Okay, you know what? Let's do some hands-on. Okay. We can start on our template. Let's do that. Okay. So let's go back to Google Drive. And let's I just want to rename this. This is your guys' stuff here. Let's create a Google Doc. Okay, so the blue one, Google Doc, and you may or may not get that message, right? Okay, all right. So let's call this as a title, lesson plan template. Okay, actually, let's back that up. Let's call it brain lesson plan template. And the brain part is, well, not that Madeline Hunter didn't contribute, but the brain part really comes from Marsha Tate. So remember our two ladies. So brain lesson plan. Okay, and it'll hopefully become obvious or evident why it's called brain lesson plan. I'm just going to put in section Z. You don't have to do that. Okay, and again, this is a template. Oops, I forgot to put the word template in there. I want to put the word template in there because this is the document. Every time I make a lesson plan, I'm just going to come to this document and I'm going to go File, make a copy, right? Because it's my template. I don't ever want to change this, but I'm going to make a copy of it and then write stuff in it. It's no different than taking a piece of paper to a photocopier and going, oh, this is my worksheet. I can't write on the worksheet or it'll wreck it for all the kids. So I take my template, and then I photocopy it, and then we can write and do whatever we want. That's kind of what we're doing here. So remember, we do three things to these Google things when we can't. One is we give it a name. I'm also going to give it a star because we're going to be working on it for a bit. So then I'll be able to find it easily. Okay, we're going to change the share settings. Now mine automatically changed, but yours probably wouldn't have changed. So remember, this is a huge potential to use it in an interview situation on your ePortfolio and really literally probably for the rest of your life. So let's share this. So once we go to the share button up here, let's go change, and we are going to say anyone with the link is a viewer. Okay, and then that means that if you put this in your ePortfolio, or if an administrator said, hey, give me can you give me a copy or show me what your lesson plan template looks like, you can send them the link, they can look at it, but they can't touch it, right? So anyone with the link is a viewer, and that means that anybody anywhere can see this when we do that. We'll just say done. And then of course, then your icon should change here if it didn't. Okay, and then the last thing is, this is one of those documents where we want to use as much real estate as possible. So we're going to go File and go down to Page Setup, and then we're going to add 0.5 of an inch margins all the way down. Everything else can stay the same for now, but we're just going to go 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and then just hit OK when you're done that. Okay. Does anybody need me to run through any part of that again? Because I will if you need. Don't be shy. Okay. All right, let me just make this bigger. Okay, so we've got a title, we got it shared, we've got it, our margins the way that we want it. If you want to be able to see your margins, and if you can't, that is under View, and you can just go Show Ruler, and then you'll be able to see the rulers along. Okay, so you can see we have a 1/2 inch margin there. So here, if we look at our example, so this whole template is going to be a bunch of individual tables, I'll say. So the very first table we're going to add is our topic table. And we are literally just going to go Insert Table, and it's going to be a one by one. And in that 1 by 1, just type in the word topic. Okay. And you don't have to change it right now or put anything else in there because it's going to be your template, remember? So then you're going to make a copy of this. Your topic will be boats and buoyancy, and you'd go from there. Okay. So right now, don't worry about colors or fonts or any fanciness. Okay. The next one down is I think it's a 1 by 2 we call it. I'm going to come here and go Insert a Table again. And it is my apologies, 2 by 1. Okay. And on one side, we are going to have the date. On the other side, we're going to have subject. I'm just going to close my door for a second. All right. So date. And then you can just tab over or click over subject. Okay. So there is topic, boats and buoyancy, date. When we make these, where's my thing here? What I do is I don't put in the actual day. I put in only day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, because in that way, every year you have to change the date and because it could be on a Wednesday this year and a Tuesday next year or whatever, you know how that works. So I usually just go day 1, 2, 3, and then I can just stay on there. So it's just a little bit more flexible. And the same thing here, we haven't done this yet, goes with times. I don't put that this is from 8:33 to 9:15. I put in, this is, you know, this part of the hook, this part is going to take me 6 minutes. Okay, but we'll get there eventually here. Okay, so on this next one, we are going to click below it here. So every time we make a table, we always want to have our insertion point flashing below that table. And then on this one, we're going to insert a 2x4. Sorry, my bad, 2x2. Okay, and that'll look like that. On one side, we're going to put lesson outcomes. So lesson outcomes, and below that we'll put in lesson objectives. And remember, outcomes come from the government in the form of our programs of study, and objectives come from the teacher, right? And then on the other side here, we're going to go assessment and input. Okay, I'm just going to move that over there a little bit. Assessment. Right, so how are you going to know that they learned anything, right? And input, remember, we just learned about that, is like the words and the phrases and stuff that kids need to know to understand what you're going to talk about in the lesson, right? So your assessments, are they going to be formative? Are they going to be summative? What is the difference between a formative assessment and a summative assessment? I'm just going to make a new page here. Does anybody know the answer to that question? What is the difference between a formative assessment? Look at all the stuff you're learning, I hope. Formative and summative. Nobody put anything in the chat? I'm so sad. All right, here is forever. You will know this. Formative happens during learning. Okay, so you just learned, while we're learning, during our learning session here, you learned that formative assessment happens during learning. And very often it is in the form of oral or verbal questions again. Okay. But of course it could be a little mini quiz. It could be a Kahoot. It could be any tool that you want to use to see if kids are getting it, right? Okay, so formative happens during learning and usually in the form of verbal or oral questions. Okay, summative assessment, just like the word summary, happens at the end of learning. So at the end of learning. So pick your test or a quiz, right? I mean, that's what we know the most, right? Is that, okay, everybody, we're done the unit on whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be next week, there's going to be a unit test, right? We all know that. So that happens at the end of learning. Or think of provincial exams or diploma exams or any provincial achievement test, right? Those are all summative. Okay, it's the end of grade 6 math now. What do kids actually know? That kind of idea. Okay, so formative and summative assessment. We know that. So that's what we're looking at here. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now. Okay. All right. The next thing down is just going to be, this might be a 1x2. Oops, is right here. Going to be below here. I'm going to go insert a table. And it is a 1x2. Okay. So in the top line, we're going to type in rationale. Okay. And we'll talk more about that later. Okay. And then I'm just gonna, I'll put this in the chat so that you can just copy and paste it and you don't have to type it all. But this is really in the rationale. This is what I am looking for as what you put in your rationale. So I'll might as well just throw that in my own as well. Okay. So if you can put that in your own table, that'd be great. Okay, and then what we're going to do is now we're going to start working on really the meat and potato part of this lesson plan template. But is there anybody that needs me to show anything again? Everybody's good? Okay. So we're gonna do whatever this is, a 1x3 or a 3x1. I can never remember. So let's just do it. 3x1. And then in this first cell or this first rectangle, we're going to type in time. And this one, we're going to type in teaching points. Teaching points. And over here, we are going to type in the words Bloom's level. And again, we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so we are going to, so now that you've got those typed in there, there's a little dividing line between each one of those words. So on the very first one here, right by teaching points, I want you to mouse over it and watch what happens to your mouse pointer, right? It goes from that little I beam to right and left arrow. I want you to drag that, click hold and drag to the left, just so it is literally just big enough for the word time. Okay. On teaching points, we're not going to really do anything to it other than we're going to click in that box and then we're going to choose center. Okay. And then we'll just use the centering tool to center it. And then for Bloom's level, what we're going to do is we are going to make that smaller. So if we highlight it and let's make it, let's try 10 point. No, let's go smaller than that. Now let's go all the way down to 8. So whatever font you end up choosing, you might need to adjust that size a little bit depending on how big or how small it is. Okay. Right now we're just using this default font. So and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide that over. Let's see. I'm not sure which way I want it. Just one sec here. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that on mine. If you wanted to leave it just on one line, like however that's going to work out like that, you could do that as well. I think I'm going to put mine on 2. There we go. The only other thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to make sure everything is centered here. So I'm just going to highlight that again and just make everything centered like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So, and that is where we're heading out with this. Okay. So now we are going to make a whole bunch more of these 3x1s, but let's just do one kind of together here. You can always make them on your own, but let's do one together for sure. So I'm going to add again, insert another table, and it's that 3x1 option. And then what you got to do is you kind of just got to for this next one, I just kind of eyeball it and just say, yep, that's about right. And I move that over a little bit. That's about right as well. Okay. So again, if we look at our example here, here's a segment. There's nothing in these boxes when we have like our template. Okay. And so then on our template, we've got these. Now we're going to need 3 of these, but well, before that, let's do this. So in this first box is going to be called, these are called segments. Okay, so our first box is our anticipatory set or our hook. So that's what you can type in this first box. You can type in anticipatory set, and then in brackets, I'll put in the hook. Okay, and that's all we need for today's purposes. Okay, and then we're going to do, now again, you can do this a couple of ways. Now we could actually just copy this and paste it all the way down. Or we could, I'm going to do one more the old-fashioned way of insert a table and make it like that. And then I got to drag it. So obviously the benefit, or one of the benefits of copying and pasting it, is your format stays the same, right? So that's pretty close. All right, this is our first segment. So we're actually going to call it segment 1, or this is our first chunk. Okay. So in here, we're going to type in segment. I'm just going to put 01. And this is, and in brackets, please put in the word chunk, because that's going to come into play when we do some more notes. And then I'm just going to go like 1, 2, maybe enters, maybe 3. And I'm going to type in the word activity. And the activity is the chew part. Okay, so we're gonna, this lesson plan, remember it's a brain-based lesson plan. We're using a sort of a instructional strategy called chunking and chewing. Okay, or content chunking. So that's segment 1. Now, again, if you look at this lesson plan, there are 3 segments. So if you wanted now, what you could do is you could highlight it, you could copy it, and you can paste it 2 more times. Now, the only thing is do you have your font the way you want? But you can always adjust that after. So I'm going to go 1 more, 2 more, and then I've got segment 2 and segment 3. Okay, so this is a test question, and I get people on this question all the time. How many what is the minimum amount of segments that you would need for a lesson? And it sounds like maybe a complicated question, but logically, you need at least 1 section, right? And ultimately, the number of sections that you have is determined by how much time you have to teach your lesson. So we have got an anticipatory set, which all lessons should have a beginning, right? We've got a middle, which is our segments or our chunks and our chews. And then we need to have a conclusion or an end, right? So then that is for us closure, okay? So let's make 1 more of these segments, and I'm just going to copy 1 and I'm going to paste it. And this is going to, I don't call this one segment 4, just like I don't call anticipatory set segment 1 or segment 0. I just, they're their own things to me. And then so we have closure here, and then closure. Sometimes I have a chew and sometimes I don't. For our purposes, let's leave it in for now. But sometimes my closure is the activity. Like if the closure was play a Kahoot for review, that's kind of my chew at the same time. So again, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I have it in there, sometimes I don't. Okay. All right, we're almost done. So then we need next class, displays and materials, and teaching notes. So let's make those boxes, and they're the same as the rationale box, right? We'll just click below there. We'll go insert a table, and it is a 1 by 2, just one on top of the other. So this is going to be the very first one is going to be next class. So that is like for you, a note for yourself to go, okay, next class, here's what I need. And usually what goes in here is is there anything you need to do or bring or whatever? And is there anything the kids need to bring? So if this is social studies and they're doing some stuff on maps and they need their pencil crayons next day to color whatever it is on their maps, then you would say, okay, in next class, students, please bring your pencil crayons, your Chromebooks, your whatever it is that you need, and also kind of whatever it is that you need for yourself, right? So if it was for you, you'd go bring Chromebook cart or whatever it is, bring paints or whatever, okay? But that also kind of goes under displays and materials. So let's make a new one. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to copy this one, and I'm going to make, we need 2 more anyway. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay. So now here's the thing that your own dilemma that you're going to run into is, do I let things split like that on my sheet? Now, I think there's a new command here. Just a sec here. I thought there might be one that prevents it from doing that, or you can tell it to stop doing that. But I could be wrong. Let me just see here. No, maybe not. Okay. So anyhow, what I'm getting at is, do you want your table to be like on together like this, or like it was here, split, right? Now, right now, this does not matter that much because you're going to be typing and putting information in here, and it's going to get bigger anyways. I usually make that big decision of, do I want it on 1 or do I want it on 2 after I have all my info in there. So just so that you know, the reason or how I'm getting it down there, the only really way is to go enter, 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 or return, 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 or you can go command return, and that makes a page break. Okay, but either way, whatever it is, however you want. And of course, also by changing your font and stuff up here, that will also change your page as well. Okay, so we've got next class, displays and materials. Displays and materials. Okay, so that literally is, are you bringing crayons, or do they need Kleenex? Do they need whatever it is? And that can be for you and or for the students. Okay, so if one of your materials that you need is Chromebooks, then if kids all have their Chromebooks, you ask them to bring it, that kind of idea. Okay, and this last one is just teaching notes. Teaching notes. And that literally is note to self. Now for our, obviously in our templates, there's nothing in it, but also for your lesson, you probably won't have anything in there, because it's usually after you've taught the lesson and gone, oh, okay, note to self, I need to do this next time and not do this next time, or whatever it is like that, right? Or maybe this experiment works better with warm water versus cold water, note to self kind of idea. Okay, now on here, the colors and, like I said, the fonts that you choose are completely up to you. I do have a couple rules though around colors. Okay, one is, and I'll explain this in a second, is we use complementary colors, and we use complementary or I don't know if you would say it like that, complementary colors, and we use contrasts. So light on dark, dark on light. So you can see that some of my fonts are black, some of my fonts are white. That's just depending on the color choices you make. Okay, so that is contrasting colors. Complementary colors are this. If we go to, let's go to our very first topic bar. Okay, if you go there, up on the toolbar is paint can, and that's how we make the bar get color. So if I just chose out of this kind of turquoise or whatever, there you go. Okay, you can have it any color you want it to be within that. Okay, now here's the kicker, within that palette. And in that palette, how do you know what are complementary colors? Well, I'll tell you. It's either this entire row or any row. Those are all complementary colors and they all work good together, or it's in the column. So all these reds, these are all kind of versions or different shades of red or green or blue or whatever, but those are also complementary. So for this, the little colored bars, pick your color, just stay within the complementary color, I don't know, guideline, if you want to call it that. Okay. All right. And then let's see what else on the checklist have I missed. Is there anything else I've missed? Oops, where did it go? Do I have a checklist on here? No, I don't think I have the checklist. I'll have to get a whole iron sick. Do I not? Oh yeah, right here. There it is. Okay, I'll make that a bit much bigger. So on that checklist, okay, let's just go over it really quickly. My font is not the greatest font. I realize that. Oh yes. So we've got those 1/2 inch margins all the way around. And remember, I'd like it to be in portrait mode. So if we go back to just double check, we go to file page setup, you just need to be in portrait. Okay. So just make sure that we do that. That you've used multiple tables, so we've done that. We've used in the example, we've used 1 column, 2 columns, and 3 columns. So yours should be the same as mine. Time and balloons columns are sized appropriately. Well, we've done that already. Your headings in your titles here should be bold or bold. Bolded, and again, whatever it is font it is that you end up using, right? It should be bolded. Again, use a font that's fairly easy to read, either by you, or think of it this way. What if a sub was going to use this lesson plan, whether it be digitally or printed out? You need to use a font that is appropriate for reading. You probably will be in the 2-page range, even if it's just a 1 and a little bit. Your lesson plan will probably be around 2 pages. We need to add a footer. Let's do that right now. So how you add a footer in a Google Doc, there are many different ways, or a few different ways. But if you just come down to the bottom of the page here, you can just double click it and it'll give you the footer. And so what I'd like is your teacher name. So oopsie. So like Mr. Ms. whoever, I'm just going to put in Mr. McDermott. Oopsie. Right? So if I was in school and I left this on a staff room table or in the hallway, people would know whose it is. After you have your name in there, just hit your space bar a couple of times. Oh, pardon me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert and come down here and do page number. And we're going to use, pardon me again, we're going to use this one right here. Okay. So I don't know why it is like this, but it is what it is, and so we'll just do it. Is that it didn't put it, like you put this number anywhere you want. If you want to leave it there, you can. I like mine way over here on the right-hand side, but you can't really, so if I chose right justify, it brings everything. So whether it's right or whether it's left, one of these ends up having to get tabbed over, okay? So I usually just tab it over until it puts it on the next line, and I bring it over. So it's all on the same line. And because my name is important, but it's not that important, I make it just a little bit smaller. So then I can tab it over a little bit, probably one more. There you go. And then once you're done in there, you get your name and the page number. Just click anywhere outside of it, and it's there. So again, if you wanted to use a fancier font on that, and you know, however you want it to look, you can make it look, you know, down there. That's fine. Okay. Let me just go back to the checklist here. Right. Okay. And then so it says use the correct alignment tools. And really what I'm just saying is that if you want next class centered, please don't center it by just, you know, hitting the space bar or holding the space bar down and centering that way. That's the inappropriate way to do it, or the incorrect way to do it. Just click in there. And again, like I said, use the centering tool. Okay. So if you are moving things around, you know, to line them up, please use the correct alignment tools. And that's what that meant right here. Okay. So your alignment should look similar to this example. Okay. You can have some poetic license here and add some of your own touches to it. But generally speaking, your headings and things like that should be very, very similar to mine. Okay, but again, you can choose fonts and styles and all this stuff, all however you want them to look, and same with colors. Okay, yes, we'll talk about that after. And then I don't know. There's this final example there. Okay, questions. Okay, nobody's got a question. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Open up a new tab. And if you want here, I will put this link for you in the chat. We're going to go to the Program of Studies Alberta Government website. So go to this site. And you're not going to actually really do anything other than this. You should have the URL copied in there or already in your clipboard. So let's copy it. And then on your lesson plan here, I'd like you to do this. Where it says lesson outcomes, I want you to highlight the word outcomes. Okay. And now remember, we've got our URL copied from Alberta, the Government of Alberta website. I'm going to highlight that. And then this button right here is the insert link button. So there's 3 ways to do that. You can click that button. You can go insert or link, or the way I like to do it is I can just use Command or Control key on my keyboard. But I will use, let me just highlight that again, sorry. I'll just use this link button right here. And then just paste it, and then just apply it. Okay, so then when you click it, you'll see it says Programs of Study below it. And so then you'll have the link there, and you won't have to keep, I don't know, trying to find it. Okay. Okay. What else do we need to do here? Just one second. There's nothing else on the checklist. Let me just see some of the other final touches. So we close that up. All right. I don't think we need to do any of that today. We'll do that after. Oh, yes. If you want, for time, so when I do time on this lesson plan, let me go to my lesson plan here. remember I said that it would be how many minutes. So is this going to, you know, your anticipatory set might be 12 minutes, and that's all I put in there. And then the next one is minutes again for each thing. How much do it is. So the chunk is the content. That's what you're going to teach them. The chew is giving them an activity so that they can help remember that content. Okay. All right. We'll talk more about that next day. So here's what I'm going to do. If you have no more questions about lesson planning, I'm going to let you go in a sec, but hold on for a second. Okay. So in Google Classroom, I am going to assign this right now. Oops, I need a needs a due date here. I'm going to say, well, actually, it's pretty much, this is just a template. So we've pretty much almost got that done today. So let's just make it due, what day say, 18th? Let's make it due next Tuesday at noon. And then next Tuesday, then what we'll do is, so it'll all be pretty. Yours will look all pretty with colors and all that jazz. You're not going to have all this text that I've got in there, but you're going to have everything all set up really nice with your fonts and your colors. And then what we'll do is we will start learning how to do a lesson plan. So what we're going to do together, we'll do a lesson plan together, because digging up curriculum sometimes can be a bit tricky. Okay, so I'm going to assign this one right now. So, because you're almost done it. And then as soon as you're done, don't forget to submit on, remember a checklist and or a rubric for every single assignment. So you're going to submit your template, and you would submit on that one. You submit the checklist as well. Okay, whatever the heck it is. Got to close a couple things up. Okay, and then in here as well, so there's a lesson planning hyperdoc. Take a stab at that, please. These are on the honor system. These are marked as done. Okay, so, and I've said that right here. There's nothing to hand in. Just go through the hyperdoc, complete it the best you can, and then if you've done it, you just mark it as done, and you get the 5 marks. So we're going on the honor system here. So because there's really no way, without making it way more complicated, to check up to see if you did it, right? If you want to learn, this is a really great place to go. There's a lot of information here that you need to know about. Okay, so you get the hyperdoc to work on. The hyperdoc links to most of the readings and resources here, but you might want to check them out. Okay, you've got to finish off the checklist. Don't worry about, let me just see here, blooms. If next week we're doing on the 25th, I'm going to make that due February 1st. We might even change that date after as well. Okay, and that's just adding Bloom's taxonomy to your hyperdoc, or to your lesson plan, and that's down here, and we'll learn and talk more about that. So don't worry about Bloom's right now and the other things that you can't see. All right, so any questions about that? Okay, if you have any questions, obviously you know how to get a hold of me. Okay, in the meantime, you've got lots of things to work on between now and next week. And of course, if you have any problems, don't hesitate to get a hold of me via Remind or by email. Now, if you're done with me, you can head out. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, or anything, stick around and I'll help you, okay? All right, thanks everybody. And I'm just going to stop recording.